Hey everyone, let's continue on chapter 7, Robots, the movie novel book. On chapter 7, Fender and the other Swesties had no idea that Ratchet and his mother were planning to remove all the outmoded bots in Robot City from the streets. At the moment, thoughts of the chop shop were far from their minds because they were welcoming Rodney into their home for the night. Fender opened the door to Aunt Fan's home and led Rodney inside. The boarding house certainly wasn't like the neat, orderly house Rodney had grown up in. In the copper-bottom home, everything was simple with basic furniture and no clutter. But here, well, it was amazing. The living room was filled with unusual sculptures, overstuffed couches, and other strange objects Aunt Fan had collected over the years. It was cluttered and cozy. Let me just know you. Let me just let her know you're here, Fender said, as Ronnie said it did unusual did care. And Fan! He shouted. We want someone! I'm in the kitchen. And Fan sang back joyfully. Are you sure you ain't won't mind? Ronnie asked Fender nervously. Relax, she's not my aunt. She just takes a bath to a book. And bless her little heart. Fender added sincerely as he directed Ronnie into the kitchen of boarding house. Then why do you call her Aunt Fan? Ronnie wondered. We couldn't call her Aunt Booty. Fender replied. Not that. That wouldn't have been appropriate in her case. After all, Aunt Fan wasn't just any bot. She was a unique combination of parts. With a brightly painted cheerful face, a metallic hairdo piled high on her head like a beehive, and multicolored crystals that decorated her torso. But her most unique feature was her massive rear end. It was huge with round tails and shiny bites of metal that made it stand out even more. If that were possible, she was obviously very proud of her incredible theory. Wow! Ronnie exclaimed, with obvious amazement as he caught sight of the woman. The word was out of his mouth before he could stop himself. He could feel the grease rising to his cheeks with embarrassment. But Ronnie needn't have worried. Aunt Fan didn't hear him. The sound of Ronnie's voice was masked by the clatter of pots and pans falling from the counter. Aunt Fan had knocked them over as she turned to greet Fender and his friend. Apparently, Aunt Fan had little control over her huge caboose. Whoops! Oh, let's go help! She exclaimed as she tried to leap out of the way of a falling fry pan. Too late. It landed on her toe. Oh, ow! She moaned. Why are my shoes? I'm so clumsy. The landlady sighed and smiled at Ronnie. Well, hello there. What's your name? Ronnie tried to focus on Aunt Fan's face, but he just couldn't move his eyes from her enormous chest. I'm Rodney Bottom, he blurted out. No, I'm Rodney Copperbottom. Copperbottom. That's a wonderful name. Aunt Fan complimented him sincerely. Big Bottom. As Aunt Fan turned to speak to Fender, a horn started to beep. It sounded like a truck backing up in the street. Ronnie didn't recognize the noise at first, but he'd never forget it. It was an Aunt Fan's Fanny, signal. She was backing up. Before he could leap out of the way, Aunt Fan backed into Rodney, smothering his entire body with her wheel and pinning him to the wall. Well, she began to say to Fender. Then she noticed Rodney had disappeared. What happened to your friend? She quickly turned her body to look for the missing bot. Whoa! Rodney cried out once again. As Aunt Fanny shifted position and fed him, he gasped for air. Aunt Fan giggled. There you are! Aunt Fan, he needs a place to stay, Fender explained. Well, just make yourself at home, she told Rodney sincerely. Thank you. That's very kind of you, he replied. My pleasure, she said sincerely. So you need Philly. Hey, just like Big World, Rodney recalled. The thought of Big World struck a chord in Aunt Fan. She found him downright handsome. Oh, Big World, she gushed. That's a lot of robot. She turned around suddenly, and her butt knocked Rodney and Fender all the way into the living room. They landed with a thud on the couch. Come on, you can bunk with me, Fender invited Rodney. He walked across the room and pulled on a giant lever. Suddenly, that entire side of the room began to rotate on its side like a giant Ferris wheel. As the wheel turned, each of the rooms in the boarding house came into view. Rodney watched in amazement as one by one of the Westies' bedrooms passed in front of him. He could see Piper in her room. She was wrapped in a metallic towel, and her face was covered in wax. She was obviously not expecting company. She gasped when she saw the boys. Bennett, get out of my room! She demanded. I'm not in your room, Fender argued. Then he moved one foot across the threshold. I am now, he teased. Then, moving his foot out again, he said, No, I'm not. Panda wasn't in the mood for games. She held the wax buffer maniacal in his direction. Get out of my room, she repeated. Moving on, Fender told Rodney as he pulled the lever, sending the wheel moving again. Suddenly, Rodney found himself face to face with Crank Casey. The Westing bot was squatting over the pan, reading a newspaper. They caught him going to the bathroom. Oh, man, that's my little change today. Something's wrong with me, Frank informed them. Oops, sorry. Fender apologized as he pulled the lever one more time and refilled his own room. Rodney stared at his new home away from home. It was a complete pigsty. A total mess. Here we are. Home sweet home, Fender announced grandly. What's mine's yours. He flung out his arms excitedly. And they fell off. Oh dear, I'll get him. Rodney reassured him. But that wasn't so easy. Fender's arms were already busy on their own. Look at it. Oh, that arm wrestling. Could you separate them? He asked Rodney. The gangly red robot grimaced and scratched his back against the wall. Hurry, my backside itches. Rodney had never had a roommate before. He'd never had the chance to enjoy simulating late-night guy talk, like the kind of Fender was offering him that evening. Right now, weird squeaks were coming from Fender's side of the room. Fender looked over at Ronnie's disgusting expression and shook his head. I'm doing musical arm fights. Do you know how to do those? They're hard to do because we're a metal. But that's where the skills comes in. If it comes close, listen. He placed his hand under his armpits and squeezed. A loud squeak emerged. Fender smiled proudly. Ronnie shook his head. You know, I'm a little tired. He replied. Maybe tomorrow. Fender studied Ronnie's really still face. Kind of rough day, huh? Kinda. Ronnie admitted. My dad's probably sitting by the phone waiting for his brilliant son to call and tell him what a big success my first day was. Ronnie stopped himself mid-sentence and took a deep breath. It's not your problem. If you're burdened with friends, soon you won't have any. What are you, fortune cookie? Fender joked. Then he considered what Ronnie had just said. You consider me your friend? Sure, what else would I consider you? I don't know. Fender shrugged. An embarrassment who watched the weapons of this kid's embarrassed, desperate cry for help. The list is endless. Rodney smiled slightly. Let's just stick with friend. Fender nodded understandably. Well, Rodney even thought he's discouraged, do you remember? There's another one coming tomorrow. Rodney was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, Hey, Fender. Hmm? Fender placed his hand under his armpit and let out a string of the loudest on-fart ever. Fender collapsed in a fit of giggles. Got to do! He began to sing. Let it in now! Let it out! Let it out! Make it have something below. Let it air bomb. Let it start bombing. Soon the entire house listened on the fun. Although the party started to wind down after the infant didn't quite get the parts of on fights. Let's end of chapter 7. As soon as have the animated movie, add this animated movie, just from the makers of Ice Age. Next up in chapter 8.